Okay, I'm going to admit something. Sometimes my audience really does piss me off. I mean, it seems to me there's this like fear out there of trying stuff. A week or so ago, I put out a video. I thought it was a really innocent video. How to sharpen my pocket knife in about 10 seconds. It uses a carbide thing and you scrape the edge. You took little shavings of metal instead of grinding it over, getting all the angles and stuff like that. And for a pocket knife, it was perfectly fine. You would not believe the number of people that in the comments said that expletive just ruined the knife. That blade's toast. It's crap. He ruined it. Just, ugh. And you know, if they curse, generally, if you ever curse on my channel, I delete your comment. I don't even bother coming back to you. But if they at least said it politely, you know, I would reply, why? Nobody answered. Nobody answered. And the only thing I can think of is there is a fear out there of even trying to experiment with stuff. I mean, seriously, whether it's a pocket knife, a chisel, or turning gouges, and this fear seems to be most in turning, and they aren't rude about it or anything. I just see it when I talk to people, and they're looking at their tools, and they just don't want to experiment with, you know, changing the grind, changing the area. And I'm here to tell you, it is very hard to destroy a blade. Really, there's only two things you can do to do that. You change the temper, meaning you get it really, really hot, and it changes the molecular structure, all that kind of stuff, and it softens it or hardens it or makes it brittle or stuff like that. And most of the stuff we were doing, including that scraping trick, does not really get the temperature that high. And if you have tools like high-speed steel, it's actually designed for those high temperatures. You know, we're worried in high carbon steel, like in our hand tool chisels and stuff like that, about seeing that blowing edge. Well, yeah, that's to the point where the temper could be changing, but there are ways around that that even if it does happen, you quench it really quickly and then just grind that a little bit off, or heaven forbid, just use it as a little softer metal until it dulls and sharpen again. You'll eventually get back to the good steel. It'll give you good practice, right? But we're so scared of doing that kind of stuff. And all those people that were leaving comments, you know, what's the worst that could have happened? I changed the angle. Oh my God, I have to take it back to the grinder and resharpen it instead of taking 10 seconds to do it. Maybe I have to take 2-3 minutes. It's not that big a deal. Steel is cheap. It is so much cheaper than sandpaper, especially in the turning world. So don't stress about it. I mean, you think you spend $100, that's a very expensive gouge coming all over, and every time you sharpen, you're taking off maybe 1/10 of a millimeter if you're doing it even halfway decently. If you're a new person, you're taking off maybe 1 millimeter. How many times do you have to sharpen to spend more than you did on sandpaper? I mean, putting a fresh edge just gives you such a great result. So I wanted to revisit something today to eliminate a lot of that fear from what I think people have out there of experimenting. You know, if you want to, you see a video, Stuart Batty, oh, it's a 40-40 grind, none of your tools are 45 grind. You want to see what it's like? Put a 40-40 grind on it. What's the worst that can happen? You have to reset it and maybe you lost 25 cents worth of steel, if that, probably just a nickel's worth. You can always fix it is what I'm trying to tell you. So I have a gouge right here. I pulled it out of Dad's collection. I know it's Dad's because he has all these black Sharpie marks. That's kind of his trademark thing that he does whenever he sharpens stuff. And if you look at it, the nose is dipping down because it's been sharpened too much on the nose, too much. The bevel on the side is kind of, it's different from each side. You can see this one comes back a little bit farther. This one has a dip right there, but then it kind of hooks a little bit. This tool needs to be reset. So this is the worst case scenario. You've totally messed up the shape, the grind, all that kind of stuff, and you just want to get back to a workable state, a consistent state. This is how you do it. It is this simple. Got a grinder. Most grinders, they come with a coarse and a fine wheel. You have something for grinding an edge, and then you have something for sharpening and the turning tools. A lot of times, this is like an 80 grit and maybe a 120 grit in the friable wheels. They just come that way, a coarse and kind of a medium or a fine wheel. Me personally, I have a coarse. This is really coarse, and I think this is like 180 or 220. And then I have a one that's a little bit too fine, but it works for me. And I sharpen a lot. I mean, we're talking on a typical bowl. It gets sharpened when I start, a lot of times with pecan, 2 or 3 times in the middle, and then before the last cut, I'll sharpen it coming on the inside, and before the last cut on the outside, I'll resharpen it there. So, you know, on a really hard wood bowl, I'm sharpening 4 or 5 times at minimum. So, sometimes you just screw it up and you just want to have a reset. Here's how we can do it. Now, this is high-speed steel, and if you're going to change the grind, you go to the coarsest wheel you have access to. The reason why is because of heat a lot of times and speed. The coarser wheels takes bigger chunks out of the steel, and somebody told me that most of the heat goes into the stuff that's getting removed. That's why we get sparks, but this will heat up a little bit. But the coarser chunks create less heat. There's less friction there. I mean, it's coarser. Where the finer, there's more things moving across it, creating more friction, thus more heat. So your finer grits are going to create more heat. That's why you use them less often with less pressure. A coarse wheel is your friend if you don't want to change the temper of your steel. But once again, almost everything's high-speed steel, so we don't really have to worry about that. First thing I'm going to do is move my 40-degree platform from one to the other. And really, if I'm just shaping it, if I get close, I'm going to be just fine. This is set to 40 degrees. Now, this is a bowl gouge, and that nose angle right there, you generally see people doing anywhere between 40, 45, 50, 55, and all the way up to 60 degrees for different applications. Basically, all that does is it tells you where you can engage the bowl and how far deep you have to go in before you convert over to something like a bottom feeder or a bottom bowl gouge, which just has a steeper angle if you want to ride that bevel. So, a lot of people out there have kind of gone, or Stuart Batty has convinced us to go to these 40-40 grinds, and that's what I've done on most of my bowls for no other reason than I'm lazy. I have one platform that's up to 40 degrees, and I forget about it, and I use that degree angle for a lot of different tools. So it's not necessarily that I think that grind is best, it's the most convenient for me. And it doesn't really matter that much in the long run. The wood can't tell the difference if you use the tools the right way. But if you know that you can reset it, why not experiment? Try it at 45 degrees. Try it at 55 degrees. Maybe go all the way up to 65 degrees. What's the difference? If you don't like it, you can always come back and reset your tools. That's what I'm going to do right here and now. Now, first thing, this is totally wonky. The wings are different angles and stuff like that. So I want to get a baseline, a guide to go with. And guess what? They give you a built-in jig for that one on all your tools. You have these 2 wings. They sit flat. It's balanced that way. Now this platform is set for 40 degrees, and that is the nose angle. That's this angle right here, not this angle right here. But this angle right here, nobody really talks about because it doesn't really matter that much, I've found. Basically, it just affects how long your wings are going to be. So you can, if you wanted to, come up to 40 degrees and just do it flat right there. But remember, this wheel is round, and we do not want to have a hook on the tip. We don't want it to be like this. We want it to be either slightly concave or dead flat. So what a lot of times I would do is I'll just get it with my fingers right here. My fingers are flat, and you can, or even do it like this, and then just kind of roll it up. And our objective is to get a flat spot all the way around. This is a very light touch. So here we go. I turn it on, come back over, I get it flat. See that? Get it even, and then just come forward and just kind of rise up and take a look. Oh, you can see. Can you see that in the angle? It flattened the side right there. It never touched this side. This wing was all off, and I still haven't touched the top. So come back over, and just a light touch. Now, because of experience, I know that I haven't hit the front wheel because I don't see any metal coming over the top. If you have a blunt edge, the sparks and stuff are going to hit and bounce sideways. But once you hit that top and you get a little bit of a burr coming over, the sparks start coming over the top. So right now you can see I've got a little bit of a flat on both sides, but I still don't have a flat on top. Once you get a flat all the way across the U, stop. There we go. Can you see? Just right at the top, I have the slightest of flat. Now I'm going to look over at the side of it and make sure that I have it either dead flat or slightly concave. And can you see? I'm pretty happy with that. So we're now done here. When I say done, I mean we're done with the top section, getting the shape we want. Now we just got to grind those wings back to our desired angles. And there's no shame if you want to use a gauge. I use jigs for my spindle gouges because of the geometry. They work best right here. I don't use it for my bowl gouges, but hey, if you want to try to freehand it, you can always reset it, right? Otherwise, just use whatever jig you want. So I'm going to come over, I'm going to do the standard 40-40 technique, which really isn't that, I don't know, Stuart Batty just really named that naming convention. I'll come over here and I'm just going to grind on this until those flats go away. That's it. Once the flats go away, stop. And all I'm doing right now is I have two Sharpie lines at 40 degrees to this top edge right there. So that's how I can kind of gauge it. And if I keep this bottom wing flat, because this is a parabolic wings, it's not a complete U, they're kind of flat, and then they do a curve on the bottom and come flat back up. So if I keep the wings parallel with this fence right here, I know that I will have 40 degrees on both the wings, the tip, and the other wing. It's that simple. So just come over and grind away. Now some of you are saying, hey, that's a long time on the grinder. Well, this is a CBN wheel, and it is a very coarse grit. So the CBN wheel being based out of metal, it is somewhat of a heat sink, and the coarse grit has less friction because it's taking more bites. So this is not hot. But if you're concerned about it, or if you have a friable wheel, just put a jar of water out here, and every now and then when you feel like it's getting hot, you know, dunk it in water for a few seconds and then come back right back out and get after it. Oh, also, keep a magnet underneath it. It'll catch all your shavings. Now, if you want a flat wing, you know, just go straight across at the 40 degrees. But over time and through experimentation, I like to have a little bit of a rounded wing. Not that much, which means that my back of a handle, I'm going between, you know, maybe 35 and 45, guesstimating. I'm just going back and forth around that 40 degrees, so it all kind of average out. I'll stay on one side until I reduce that flat. No needs to change. And once again, not warm, not hot. A little hot, but not that big a deal. Okay, now I want you to notice something. Can you see the reflection on this bottom wing right here? I still have a little bit of a flat right on the end of the wing. Can you see that? Right there? And a flat on top, but the flat is going away in the middle. And I could tell that without having to look on this side right here by watching those sparks again. Because whenever I'm grinding right here, I can see sparks coming into the flute where everywhere else they're bouncing away. So see if you can see those sparks in the camera. So right now, no real sparks. How about I turn the light out? But as soon as you start seeing sparks coming in on the inside, you can tell that wing is now no longer has any flat spots. Voila, nicely shaped. Now I'll just do the other side. And I've almost got it because I only had that one little bit of a bright spot right there, if you can see it. So when all of those shiny spots are gone, or right before they're totally gone, now it's time to go to the sharpening stone, a little bit coarser grip. And in all seriousness, I don't use that wheel right there for anything other than the shaping. Everything else is done on these two wheels right here. So if you only have one grinder like most people do, having a coarse and something of this caliper right here, I think it's 180, 220, I always forget, that's all you really need. So once it's all set up over here, it's just one quick swipe. And I've got a working tool. Though I can tell you, I don't like having a very steep heel, so I might come over here and just spend some time and grind off the heel. Now this is not a high technical part. You can see what I'm doing right there. I'm just taking off the heel of it. But if you'll notice the shape I'm doing, kind of a U. That's just practice for whenever I do my spindle gouges. And here's the end result. If you notice on the side, it's kind of almost straight, but maybe a slight curve right here. I basically have pretty much one bevel going all the way around at the cutting edge, but all this stuff right here, all those multiple bevels, I don't care about that. That's just in the air. It's never really touching anything. I'm just getting it out of the way. My bevel right now stops right where my fingernail is. Can you see that? That's my bevel. That's the only one I want to make sure it looks somewhat smooth. Everything else is good, just getting metal out of the way. So this is my preferred setup after years and years of experimentation. So quick review on how to reset a blade. Here's an old spindle gouge. And you can see what's wrong with my spindle gouge. You see where the wings are. One's way higher than the other one. It's just because I got kind of lazy. This one's getting kind of short, so it doesn't fit in my jig very easily. So I just freehand this one in. I'm not that good at freehanding sometimes, or I'm just lazy. So I want to reset this. So let's go redo it. First off, let's get the shape we want. I'm going to come up, I'm going to start high, making sure I'm on my flats, and then just come down. I've got the entire U and angle all the way around. Voila. And now, because I want that 40 degrees on the tip, I'll go flat on my tool rest and then just raise it up. Flat, raise it up. Flat, raise it up. And that's that. I spent maybe 2 minutes doing that. Got back to the edge. And if those of y'all that are wondering, hey, I don't have the hand skill, it's the same skills you use for turning beads and coves with these same tools. It's no different, except that instead of removing material from the wood, removing material from the tool. but the motions are exactly the same. Now, I apologize if I'm coming across as a condescending prick when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, but those comments just really set me off because, you know, these people couldn't justify their hatred for me doing something slightly different to a blade for the only reason I could think of was fear. And I don't want you to be scared of messing with steel. It is really hard to totally ruin it unless you just snap it in half or really get after the temper. Because a little bit off on the temper, you know, you can work past. It's not that big a deal. And steel is cheap compared to everything else. Put a fresh edge on it over and over and over. You know, they say use sandpaper like somebody else is paying for it. Well, understand that you're paying for the steel and it's dirt cheap. Sharpen those tools. And don't be afraid of experimenting. If you want to see what a different angle will do it. You can always reset. Since we were talking about bowl gouges and the different angles and stuff like that, and I wanted you to experiment with them, some of y'all might not understand what a bottom feeder bowl gouge is. And for that, on today's bonus, I want to take y'all over to Ronald Kahn's. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. His YouTube channel. On that channel, he has a very good explanation of how the bottom feeder bowl gouge works. So you can look at that one. But I like the way he teaches. If you like my channel, you're going to like his channel. Go over there and subscribe and browse around. You'll like what you see.